Hello, traders. This is Rich from tradesight. Here's a look at the market-leading ETFs via our proprietary scans. For the coming session, this is going to be for Monday, February 9th, 2015. We had kind of a reversal-ish day, but didn't have a lot of signals to show for it in the broad market here. Another thing we have is a contra candle setting up in the triple Qs, which could imply that we could see some more weakness next week. The NASDAQ side of the market today, Friday, was definitely the weaker side in Apple. Was leading the charge to the downside, down just a little bit less than 1%, whereas the broad market was more flat. You can see that reflected here in our ETFs. We drill down to the individual sectors. A couple of contra candles here, the XLE and the OIH, both showing some fade as we went into the close here, feeling the pressure from the overall market heading down. We do have a number of volume bumps, which is always notable. XLF and KRE, both of those in the financial space. And the XLU, VNQ, and the IYR all had volume bumps to the upside. As far as the commodities go, commodities were definitely in motion today with strength in oil and weakness in gold, kind of a risk-on play that was kind of working its way through. So we're seeing upside CPS condition in the DVA, and the SLV, the tracked silver, is seeing a downside CPS. Note that one does have a pretty good volume bump as well. And GLD is fairly weak, but didn't qualify with the downside CPS. The real action today was really not in the equity market, it was really in the bond market. The bonds broke really, really hard to the downside, so lower in price and higher in yields. We're winding up with downside CPSs across the board here. Note the volume bump in the TLT. Onto our foreign names. A couple on the buy side. The EWJ that tracks Japan has a contra candle to the upside, but it's on light volume. FXI has a downside CPS on light volume, and the RSX has an upside CPS on decent volume. The RSX has really been trading pretty much with oil prices, as I'm sure you're already aware, and I'm sure you've already noted that correlation. Moving on to the leveraged ETFs, we call these the specials. The UYG and the FAS both have contra candles to the downside from decent volume. URE had a really big volume day, as did the SRS. SKF setting up with a contra candle to the upside, and the FXP has an outright upside CPS but on light volume. TBT has a downside RPS for tomorrow, which is a little bit in conflict with what we're seeing in the TLTs. So keep an eye on that. That did have a very, very big move over the last few days, and this may need a little bit of a correction. All right, now here's a look at the ETFs via the watch list. So we have our bar counts on them. As you can see, the majors don't have any exhaustion runs currently in place, and the startup phase is still relatively early. We're just 3 or 4 days up in all of these, so we're not going to get any signals out of the broad market ETFs this coming week. One thing we might see a signal in is going to be the VNQ. We're 11 days up in the aggressive seeker and 11 days up in the Comer. So that definitely could come into play next week. The other thing that it's always worth watching just to see if we're getting close to 9 anywhere, either to buy or to sell in the startup phase, because that definitely has implications for the market. And we're just not there just yet. We're going to need another week until we see those. So if the market wants to move up or down, there's not going to be any bar counts to encumber a move. So that's just that's good information in and of itself. All right, folks. Hope everybody has a good weekend and a good trading week next week. As always, thanks for listening. This has been Rich for tradesight.